They thought he was just a janitor, a man in a faded uniform, quiet, invisible. So when the CEO fired him in front of everyone, nobody stopped it. Nobody defended him. Nobody imagined that 10 minutes later, the same CEO would be begging for answers as his billion-dollar company collapsed in real time. This isn't just a story about power. It's a story about arrogance, about patience, and about what happens when you underestimate the wrong man. Every weekday morning at 6 a.m. sharp, Elias Grant entered the glass tower of Harrington and Coal Industries through the service entrance. Same door, same routine, same silence. Security barely nodded at him anymore. They didn't need to. Elias never caused problems, never complained, never spoke unless spoken to. He pushed his cleaning cart down marble hallways that echoed with wealth, ambition, and secrets. People walked past him every day without seeing him. Executives argued over seven-figure bonuses while stepping around his mop bucket. Assistants talked on Bluetooth headsets about vacations that cost more than his monthly paycheck. To them, Elias wasn't a person. He was part of the background, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Richard Harrington arrived at the office at 8:30 a.m., already angry. He was angry because the board was nervous, angry because investors were asking questions, angry because whispers of an audit wouldn't go away. And when Richard Harrington was angry, someone always paid for it. Harrington was a kind of CEO business magazines called Decisive and Fearless. Employees called him something else. Behind his back, he had built his reputation on cutting costs, eliminating weak links, and showing zero mercy. Compassion, in his mind, was inefficiency, and inefficiency was unacceptable. At 8:47 a.m., Elias was mopping the executive hallway. This floor was different. Quiet, heavily guarded, private. It held the CEO's office, boardroom, and legal department. Facilities had cleared the cleaning schedule days earlier. But Richard Harrington didn't care. He stepped out of his office and froze when he saw Elias. What the hell is this? Harrington snapped. Elias stopped, lifted the mop slightly. Good morning, sir. Harrington's jaw tightened. Why are you up here? I'm assigned to clean this floor today. Elias said calmly. Facilities approved it. Harrington laughed, not amused, not friendly. I don't remember approving anything. A few assistants nearby pretended not to listen. You people don't belong up here during business hours, Harrington continued. It's distracting. Elias met his eyes. I'll finish quickly. That calmness, that lack of fear. Harrington hated it. No, Harrington said coldly. You're done. Harrington turned to his assistant. Call HR. The assistant hesitated. Sir, there's no. Now. HR arrived flustered, tablet in hand. Harrington didn't lower his voice. I want him terminated. Immediately. The HR manager glanced at Elias. Sir, has he violated a policy? Harrington stepped closer to Elias, towering over him. He violated my patience. Elias spoke softly. Is there a complaint against me? Harrington smirked. There doesn't need to be. Security was called. As Elias was escorted away, the entire floor watched. Some felt uncomfortable. Some felt sorry. None intervened. Just before entering the elevator, Elias turned back. Their eyes met. Elias smiled, and Richard Harrington felt something strange. A flicker of doubt. Then the doors closed. At 8:57 a.m., Harrington poured himself an espresso. 10 minutes after firing the janitor, his phone rang. Richard, the CFO said urgently, we have an issue. Harrington sighed. Handle it. Our offshore liquidity account has been frozen. Silence. What? Harrington asked. Before the CFO could explain, another call came through. Legal, compliance, investor relations. His assistant rushed in. Sir, trading just halted. Harrington stood up so fast his chair slid back. That's impossible. The screen on the wall refreshed. Harrington and Co. Trading suspended. At 9:01 a.m., federal agents entered the lobby. At 9:03 a.m., the board demanded an emergency call. At 9:05 a.m., news alerts exploded. Federal investigation launched into Harrington and coal industries. Harrington's world began to tilt. "This is sabotage," he growled. "Someone is trying to destroy us." The head of compliance whispered, "Sir, the disclosures were automatic." "What disclosures?" "The system triggered full transparency protocols." Harrington froze. "No one can trigger those." The compliance officer swallowed. "Yes, sir. One person can." The assistant's voice shook. The name attached to the trigger authorization. Harrington felt a cold weight in his chest. "Is Elias Grant." "The janitor." "No," Harrington said. "That's not possible." But it was. 15 years earlier, Elias Grant co-founded a startup called Grant & Co. Financial Systems. Elias was the architect, the designer, the ethical backbone. He built systems that couldn't be corrupted without consequences. Richard Harrington provided the money, and eventually the betrayal. Harrington forced Elias out through legal maneuvering. What he didn't know, Elias had embedded fail-safes. Fail-safes tied to ethics. Fail-safes tied to abuse of power. Fail-safes tied to termination without cause. And one final clause. If Elias Grant was ever fired from the company in any capacity, the system would initiate total transparency. Harrington had just pulled the trigger. At 9:12 a.m., Elias sat calmly in a black sedan across the street. Federal agents beside him. "You okay?" one asked. Elias nodded. "I knew this day would come." He watched the chaos inside the building. Phones ringing, people running, power crumbling. 10 minutes. By noon, Harrington was removed as CEO. By evening, he was indicted. Stockholders fled. Accounts were seized. Executives resigned. And Richard Harrington? He sat alone in a conference room, staring at the door, waiting. The door opened. Elias Grant walked in, not in a janitor's uniform, but in a tailored suit. Harrington stood slowly. "You planned this." Elias shook his head. "No, you did." They judged him by his uniform. They mistook silence for weakness. But power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more real-world lessons about power, patience, and justice. Because the next person you overlook might be the one who ends everything.